beer game. So anytime that you've walked into a retail store to buy beer and your brand wasn't there, there was an empty shelf in that, and you had to buy another brand or you had to go somewhere else, you've essentially played the beer game. The beer game is a business simulation that allows players to experience managing the complexities of a supply chain. My name's Brian Fugit, and I'm a professor of supply chain management in the College of Business. There's no beer in the actual beer game. We actually use poker chips to represent cases of beer. And players will represent one of 5 pieces of the supply chain. First is a retailer. Second is a distributor. Then a wholesaler, and then a factory or a brewery in this case. And lastly, there's a raw materials player. The players their job is to order beer from their supplier, and they do that using little order slips that they pass to their supplier, and they move those poker chips downstream to their customers. And importantly though, they cannot talk to each other beyond passing those order slips. So the objective of the beer game is to minimize the amount of beer that any player is holding at one time, because that beer gets stale. And this is the exact same objective of any business. Minimize cost, maximize customer service. So at the start of the beer game, we set up the game so where there's a demand of 4 cases per beer. It's at a steady state, and the supply chain is operating smoothly. But then after a few weeks, we double demand from 4 cases of beer to 8 cases of beer. That's just a slight change in demand. After a few weeks, the players, the retailer, the factory, the distributor, the wholesaler, they end up running out of inventory. Then they start ordering even more because they don't understand why the beer's not coming. This is where it gets pretty interesting. You start to see looks of frustration and expressions of anger aimed at their supplier for not being able to provide the beer that they want. About week 20, we end up seeing an even more dramatic reaction in the beer game. All of a sudden, the beer starts pouring in. Inventory builds up. They end up satisfying all of their customers' back orders that they weren't able to satisfy before. They immediately stop ordering. Every player stops ordering more beer. The distributor is not receiving orders anymore either. And so they feel even more frustrated because they have even more inventory. The amount of inventory that's coming in during that time is greater as you go from the distributor to the wholesaler to the factory to the raw material. And so each one of them is then amplifying those mistakes that they're making in terms of not ordering for a period. In the end, this can be simplified to one simple phrase: little wiggles make big wiggles. Little wiggles in demand at the consumer level create massive chaos all the way up through the supply chain. This has been referred to as the Bullwhip Effect. And what's creating the Bullwhip Effect is that the players are not communicating and collaborating with each other throughout the supply chain. One of the main factors under this is a time lag from when you place an order to when you receive an order. So you place an order and you don't receive that order for a couple of weeks down the road. When you place an order and you don't receive that immediately, yet you've got customers wanting more beer and you have stockouts, what do? You overreact. An overreaction to those issues is one of the main causes of that Bullwhip Effect. And so how we address this in supply chain management is by working on processes for the entire supply chain, the retailer, the distributor, the wholesaler, the factory, to be able to collaborate and develop trust with each other. Then the other approach is through supply chain design practices known as lean logistics, where we lean out the supply chain and we produce and order and deliver just in time. When those little wiggles occur, the supply chain can react in a less volatile way. And so the next time that you're sitting at home watching the game with a beer in your hand, look at that beer and think about all the complexities and all the decisions that had to be made to get that beer in your hand. That's the beer game.